The desert visitor. The desert was silent. No trees, no water. Only endless yellow sand under a burning sky. Jace, the human traveler, sat outside his small camp. His boots were dusty, and his water bottle was nearly empty. He checked the temperature. Over 50 degrees Celsius. Even his tech suit couldn't block all the heat. He had come to this planet, Teresa, to study rare desert plants. But for the last 2 days he had seen no plants, no animals, and no signs of life. Then something moved, far. Away near the edge of a sand dune, Jace saw a small shadow. At first he thought it was a trick of the sun, but it was real. The shape got closer, slowly, crawling. Behind it, more shapes followed. Jace reached for his binoculars. His heart skipped. A girl. Not human. She was on her knees, crawling. Her skin was a soft blue-gray. Long white hair stuck to her face, covered in dust. Her silver armor was cracked. Around her, 3 small alien animals stumbled through the sand. One collapsed. Jace stood up quickly. "Hello? Are you okay?" No answer. He grabbed his emergency pack and rushed toward her. As he got closer, the heat hit harder. The wind picked up, blowing sand into his face. But he didn't stop. When he reached her, she looked up weakly. Her eyes were large and glowing violet, but dry and sunburnt. "Water," she whispered, but not for herself. She pointed at her pets, creatures with soft glowing fur, long ears, and glassy eyes full of pain. "They're dying," she said, choking on her dry throat. Jace looked down. One of the animals wasn't moving. The other 2 were barely breathing. He had only 1 bottle of water left. 1 bottle for himself. For the next 2 days. He hesitated. His mind screamed no, but something inside him said yes. He opened the bottle and knelt beside the smallest creature. It made a weak sound, like a tiny whimper. Carefully, he poured a few drops into its mouth, then the next one, then the third. The girl stared at him in disbelief. "You gave it to them," she said. Jace nodded. "You're not the only one who loves their pets." The girl tried to smile, but she was too weak. She passed out. Jace quickly pulled out his emergency sheet and covered her and the animals. The sun would burn them alive if he didn't act fast. He dragged them back to his tent one by one. An hour later, inside the tent, the temperature was cooler. The girl lay on the floor, wrapped in a blanket. Her animals were resting close to her, breathing slowly. Jace sat beside them, his throat dry, his lips cracked. He had no more water, but somehow he didn't feel regret. The girl opened her eyes. "You are human?" she asked. "Yes," Jace replied softly. She tried to sit up but winced in pain. "Why did you help us?" "Because no one else was here." She looked at her pets. "They are called virens, rare creatures. My family told me to leave them behind, said they were not worth saving. But I couldn't." Jace raised an eyebrow. "Your family?" She nodded slowly. "I was a noble, a daughter of the council, but they said I was weak, too soft. I broke the laws to save these virens." "So they left you here?" "They threw me here," she whispered, bitterness in her voice. "Teresa is a death world for us. No water, no life, no return." Jace looked at her silently for a while. "Then you're stuck with me," she blinked, confused. "You don't hate me?" He smiled a little. "No, I just hate sand." The alien girl laughed softly, just for a second. It was the first time she had smiled since she fell. Her name, he later learned, was Leora. She was a traitor in her people's eyes. But to Jace, she was just someone who cared, someone who loved deeply, someone who didn't deserve to die in the sand. He didn't know if they'd find water. He didn't know if he'd survive. But he knew one thing. He wouldn't let her or her animals die, not while he was still breathing. The last drop, the next morning, came without a sunrise, only a dull red glow behind thick desert dust. Jace woke, up with cracked lips, his mouth like paper. His head throbbed, his throat begged for water, but there was none. He looked across the small tent. Leora was awake, her back against the wall, holding one of her small pets close to her chest. The creature's chest moved gently. It was alive. The others lay curled beside her, weak, but still, breathing. Jace smiled a little. They made it. Leora looked at him, her eyes unsure. Why did you give it to them? That water. You needed it. Jace sat up slowly. You needed them more than I needed that bottle. She looked down at the small creature in her arms. Where I come from, no one would do that. Not even family. That's a sad place, Jace said simply. Leora didn't reply. She stroked the soft glowing fur of her pet, her fingers trembling slightly. You don't understand. My people see pets as tools. Pretty things. Toys. When they get sick, they're discarded. Jace stared at her. And you broke that rule. Stole these Virens from the breeding house and ran. The council declared me useless. Heart weak. She spat the word like it was poison. There was silence between them. The air was hot, heavy, dry. Suddenly, Leora stood up. There's something I have to show you. Jace blinked. Show me? She reached for her side bag and pulled out a small metal disc no bigger than a coin. It flickered to life with a glowing blue map, 3D and spinning. This, she said, pointing at a flashing dot, is where an oasis once existed. My mother told me before she was silenced. You're saying there's water out there? I don't know. Maybe. It could be a myth, but we're going to die if we stay here. Jace rubbed his face. I'm not exactly full of options. He stood up and gathered his gear. No water, low power, and no backup coming. But something about the girl made him believe. Or maybe he just didn't want to die sitting in a tent. They packed light. Leora tied soft cloths around her Virens to keep them cool. They would carry one each and hope the third could walk. As they stepped outside, the wind stung their faces. The desert didn't forgive, but they walked anyway. Hours passed. The sand shifted under their feet like it was alive. The heat grew. Worse. Jace felt dizzy. Twice he stumbled. Leora supported him once. He didn't argue. Eventually they reached a cracked cliffside where the land seemed to break open. Beneath it was nothing. Just rock and dust. Jace dropped to his knees. It's not here. Leora looked down, silent. She touched the rock with trembling hands. Then something moved. One of the Virens. The smallest one sniffed at the ground. Its fur shimmered as it dug at the base of the cliff. Wait, Leora said, kneeling beside it. It smells something. Jace crawled to help. Together they pulled away the cracked stone, uncovering metal. A sealed hatch. Jace blinked in, disbelief. Is this real? Leora smiled faintly. Ancient tech. My ancestors used deep water tanks during the burning season. Jace activated his multi-tool and worked on the lock. Minutes felt like hours until hiss. The hatch opened. Inside was a narrow shaft, and far below, a faint shimmer. Water. Real water. Not a myth. Jace laughed out loud, but it turned into a coughing fit. He slid down the shaft, using ropes, and filled a cracked container from the pool below. When he climbed back, Leora didn't take it. Drink first, she said. He did. Then she gave a few drops to each of the Virens. They didn't just drink. They danced, weakly, slowly, but with joy. Their fur lit up like soft stars. And in that moment something changed. Not in the desert, in them. They were no longer strangers. They were survivors, together, the oasis. That wasn't, the stars above Teresa were sharp and cold, so bright they looked like needles in the sky. But down in the broken land, surrounded by silence, Jace and Leora sat beside the old water tank, holding warm cups in their hands. It should have felt like victory, but it didn't, because the tank was almost empty. Jace stared into the container. The water shimmered, but it barely covered the bottom now. "This isn't an oasis," he muttered. "It's a grave." Leora didn't answer right away. Her violet eyes were distant. "This place? It used to be full, flowing. I remember it from a vision my mother showed me as a child. But now it's just hope gone dry," Jace finished. Their 3 Virens lay curled up beside them, breathing peacefully. They looked stronger, but not cured. They still needed more. Much more. Jace pulled out a scanner from his backpack. The display flashed. Low radiation, mild minerals, and a strange trace of something else. "There's moisture deeper underground," he said slowly. "But no clear access point." Leora leaned closer. "Then we dig." He smiled faintly. "You don't give up, do you?" "I wasn't raised to survive, I was raised to obey," she replied. "But you taught me something, Jace. If no one else will help us, we help ourselves." They spent the next day digging near the cliff, using Jace's tools in their bare hands. The sun rose hard and angry. Their fingers bled. The sand was cruel. Nothing. No water. No spring. Only more dust. By evening, Jace collapsed on the rocks, breathing hard. "We're chasing ghosts." Leora sat beside him, eyes heavy with pain. "Maybe this world doesn't want to be saved." Then one of the Virens stood and began to howl, a sharp, high-pitched sound that echoed across the valley. The other 2 joined it, glowing softly. "What are they doing?" Jace asked, shielding his ears. "They're calling," Leora whispered, standing up. "Their kind used to live in packs. They sing when they're close to water, or close to death." Suddenly, a low vibration shook the ground. Jace looked around. "Earthquake?" "No." Leora pointed. "Look." From behind a nearby ridge, a shadow appeared. A vehicle. No, a group of them. Sleek desert bikes. 6 in total. And on them, raiders. The bikes circled them, kicking up sand. The riders wore dirty armor and broken visors. Tattoos glowed on. Their skin, symbols of the Sandclaws, a gang known for trading in rare alien pets. One rider jumped off. "Look what we found," he growled. 3 glowing furballs, and the council's little runaway. Leora stood in front of her, Viren's arms wide. "You won't take them," the man laughed. "Who's gonna stop us, the dying human?" Jace raised his blaster, weakly. "Try me," the raider smirked. "I don't need to try." In a flash, 2 more raiders jumped down and grabbed one of the Virens. It squealed. Leora screamed. Jace fired, but missed. The gun shook in his hand. His aim was off. His head was spinning. One of the bikes sped off, carrying the captured Viren. Jace threw down the blaster and ran after them. "No!" Leora shouted. "You'll die out there." But Jace didn't stop. He chased the bike on foot, his boots slipping. In the sand, lungs burning. He didn't care. They had taken something innocent. Something he gave his water to save. He wouldn't let them win. In the distance, the bike slowed. One of the raiders held the squirming Viren in a cage. Jace ducked behind a rock and reached into his belt, pulling a flare grenade. Only one left. Whispered, "Let's make this count." He threw it. Boom! A bright flash exploded near the bike, knocking it over. The cage flew. Jace ran, ignoring the heat, the pain, everything. He grabbed the small alien animal and ran back toward the cliff, just as the other bikes turned toward him, engines roaring. Behind him, Leora had activated a defense field from the old tank. The energy wall shimmered. Jace dove through just in time. The wall flickered, and then died. The bike stopped, unsure, then turned and rode off. For now, Jace collapsed inside the camp, clutching the rescued Viren. Leora knelt beside him, tears in her eyes. "You went after them, even in your condition." He smiled, barely able to speak. couldn't let them take what we fought to save. And for the first time, Leora didn't just see him as a human. She saw him as something more. A protector. Raiders in the Sand Night didn't bring peace to the desert. It only brought shadows. Cold wind howled through the cliffs like the cry of a beast. The sand glowed faintly under two moons, and the smell of scorched metal still hung in the air where Jace's flare had exploded. Inside the broken tank shelter, Jace lay on the ground, breathing heavily. His arm was burned, his clothes were torn, but his hand never let go of the rescued Viren now sleeping in the crook of his elbow. Leora sat nearby, wrapping his arm with strips from her cloak. Her eyes burned, not from tears, but from fury. "This isn't over," she whispered. Jace coughed, his voice weak. "They'll come back?" She nodded. "They were scouts. Now they know we're here. They'll bring more. Guns. Cages." "Let them," Jace murmured with a faint smile. "I've got one good shot left in me." But Leora didn't smile. She stood and walked to the entrance of the shelter, looking out at the desert. "They're not just raiders," she said after a long pause. "They're bounty hunters. My people hired them." Jace looked up sharply. "What?" She didn't turn around. "The council put a price on my head, and triple that for the Virens." Jace sat up slowly, pain shooting through his body. "So your own kind wants you dead?" "No," she said coldly. "They want me silenced." And the animals turned into royal gifts. Suddenly, a small beep echoed from Jace's pack. He opened it. His scanner had picked up movement. Multiple signals. Approaching fast. "They're here," he said. Leora ran to the controls of the tank's defense grid, but the system blinked red. Power drained. "Too late," she muttered. Outside, the sound of engines filled the night. Hover bikes and desert sleds. Bright beams cut across the sand. 5 vehicles, maybe more. Jace grabbed his blaster, shaking. "I'll hold the door." Leora blocked him with her arm. "No, you can't even stand." She walked outside, alone. The raiders stopped about 20 meters from her. Their leader, a tall reptilian alien with armor made of bone, stepped forward. "You again," he hissed. "You're braver than your bloodline." "I'm not here to talk," Leora said. "Leave, now." He laughed. "With what army?" Then, something moved in the dark, a growl. The raiders turned as a shape lunged from the sand. One of the desert's apex predators, a 6-legged beast with eyes like fire and teeth like knives. The raiders panicked. The beast charged through them like wind. Leora didn't run. She walked straight toward the chaos. The beast reached her and stopped. It sniffed the air, then bowed its head. Jace, watching from inside, couldn't believe what he was seeing. Leora raised a glowing stone from her pouch. "You hunted us, but this land still remembers who it belongs to." The raiders opened fire. The beast roared, charging again. Leora ducked as the creature slammed into the nearest bike, flipping it over. Explosions rocked the sand. Jace stumbled out and fired 2 shots, hitting one raider in the leg. The rest panicked, firing wildly, screaming. And then, one of the Virens howled again. From the dunes, more glowing eyes appeared. More desert beasts. The predators didn't attack Leora or Jace. They attacked the raiders. Within minutes, the desert was silent again. Only wind. Only sand. The bodies were gone. So were the raiders. Leora knelt beside the main predator and touched its scarred face. "This is Core," she said softly. "My mother once saved her when she was a cub. She remembers." Jace looked around in shock. "You just called a monster to fight for you." "They're not monsters," she replied. "They're survivors, just like us." Jace sat down beside her. "You didn't just survive your exile. You learned how to command the wild." She smiled faintly. "Not command. Just listen." He looked at her, more impressed than ever. The desert wasn't just killing them. It was testing them. And she was passing every test. The hidden spring. The desert had many voices. Most were cruel, but this one was gentle. A soft sound echoed from the rocks, like water dripping, like the earth itself was whispering a secret. Jace opened his eyes, still, sore from the battle last night. The sky above him was pale blue, the air cooler than before. Strange. Teresa's mornings were usually boiling hot by now. Leora stood near a tall stone wall, frozen in place, her hand against the rock. "I heard it," she whispered. "Again." Jace sat up slowly. "Heard what?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she pressed her ear to the wall. Then she stepped back and slammed her fist on a certain spot. A deep thunk echoed, hollow. "There's something behind this," she said. "Something buried." Jace limped over and touched the wall. The surface was covered in old carvings. Symbols, spirals, alien runes. "This is ancient," he said. "Older than the council, maybe older than your people." Leora nodded. "My mother told me stories about the old ones who once lived in Teresa's heart, before the sands came." Jace stared at her. "You think there's a spring behind this wall?" She looked back at the Virans, sleeping but weak. "I hope there is, or they won't last another day." They began digging, again. But this time the stone wasn't dead. As they cleared sand and dust, the wall began to hum. A soft vibration in the air. Jace uncovered a flat circle, like a door. "Looks like a seal." Leora found a broken control panel nearby. Most of the buttons were gone, but a small power slot blinked faintly. Jace pulled out his emergency solar cell and plugged it in. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, click. The door split open, slowly, with a low grinding sound. A wave of cool air rushed out. They both stepped back as the door revealed a staircase going underground. Faint lights lined the walls, old tech still working. Jace looked at her. "Shall we?" Leora took his hand. Together, they descended into the dark. With every step, the air grew cooler, wet. The walls were covered in plant vines, living vines. And at the bottom of the stairs was a cavern, full of water. A spring bubbled from the rocks, glowing faintly blue. Moss and crystal flowers grew around it. And in the middle of it all, a large pool, clear and untouched. Leora gasped. "It's real." Jace dropped to his knees and cupped his hands in the water. It was cold, clean, alive. He drank. And for the first time since arriving on Teresa, he felt peace. The Virans were brought down next. One by one, Leora bathed their heads. In the spring, their eyes opened wider. Their glow returned. One of them even let out a playful squeak. "They're healing," she whispered, almost crying. But the spring wasn't just water. There were machines buried beneath it, devices that monitored the ecosystem, filtered minerals, and powered growth. Jace checked one of the consoles. This place was a life vault, meant to survive the dry centuries. Leora ran her fingers over a growing vine. "My people forgot this. Or maybe they were afraid of it." "Afraid of hope?" Jace asked. "Afraid of the truth that this planet was never dead, just sleeping." They spent the next day restoring parts of the vault. Jace used his tools to fix broken vents. Leora studied the ancient control system, learning fast. They filled containers with clean water, shared food packs, and finally rested. Jace lay on a soft bed of moss, staring at the ceiling. "This could be more than a hiding place," he said. "It could be a new beginning." Leora sat beside him, holding one of the Virans close. "If others knew this spring existed, they'd come for it," Jace finished. She nodded. "That's why we can't tell the wrong people." Jace looked at her. "Then we protect it. Together?" He reached for her hand. "Always." Outside, the desert still burned, but under the sand a spring now flowed, and two souls, cast away by their worlds, had found something worth protecting. Not just water, not just life, but each other. The message and the miracle. Leora stood at the mouth of the ancient spring vault, her silver hair glowing in the moonlight. She held a transmitter in both hands, a thin, black device with old council markings. She had stolen it long ago when she first ran. It had one purpose: reach home. But tonight it wasn't about begging for rescue. It was about truth. She looked back at Jace, who was checking the Virans near the pool. "They're stronger," he said, furs glowing brighter, breathing better. Leora nodded. "The spring is healing them." "And you're sure about sending that message?" Jace asked. "Once they know this place exists, they'll come," she said. "But not just raiders, everyone, scientists, rebels, runaways, maybe the good ones too." She looked at the transmitter again. "This planet tried to kill us," she whispered, "but we found a cure. I won't keep it hidden." The message wasn't long. Leora stood before the camera, her voice calm, her eyes fierce. "To the Council of Velnari, and to all who hear this signal, you exiled me. You called me weak, but I found the heart of Teresa, a living spring, a vault of healing. The pets you discarded are alive, and the one who saved them was human." She paused, staring straight into the lens. "You fear compassion, but it is stronger than you think. If you come for war, don't bother. If you come for peace, come thirsty. We'll have water waiting." She ended the message, pressed send, and threw the transmitter into the sand. "No. Going back now." 2 days passed. They stayed hidden in the vault. Jace set traps around the cliff. Leora kept the Virans close, teaching them to respond to sounds and gestures. Then, on the 3rd day, ships came. Not warships, not raiders. Small, civilian crafts, old models, cargo haulers, refugee vessels. One by one they landed near the ridge, and from them came dozens of strange figures, tired, dirty, thin. But their eyes were full of hope. An old alien scientist, her hands shaking, stepped forward first. "Is it true? The spring?" Leora nodded and guided her inside. That day the vault overflowed with life. Children splashed in shallow pools. Creatures from across the sector were bathed and fed. One had 3 legs, another had no eyes. All were sick, and all began to heal. Word spread quickly. A miracle had bloomed in the desert, and the strange pair who guarded it, a banished alien girl and a lone human, became symbols, not of rebellion, not of power, but of something far more dangerous to broken empires: kindness. Jay sat near the pool, watching a small boy feed one of the Virans. He smiled as Leora sat beside him, handing him a drink made from local vines and spring water. "You're a legend now," he said with a grin. "The girl who made the desert bloom." She laughed, softly. "And you're the mad human who gave away his last water bottle. Totally worth it." She looked around at the growing crowd, scientists testing water, exiles building tents, orphans playing by the glowing plants. "Teresa isn't a death world anymore," she said. "No," Jace agreed. "It's becoming something else." Leora's smile faded a little. "But this peace won't last forever. The council will come. They'll bring weapons next time." Jace looked at her serious. "Then we'll be ready." "How?" He stood stretched and pointed at the horizon. "With them." She turned and saw it. A line of more ships arriving. A caravan of people, aliens and creatures from every direction. Not soldiers, not raiders, survivors, dreamers, builders. They weren't here to take. They were here to join. He gave his water. She gave her heart. The sun rose slowly over the golden dunes of Teresa, but the desert wasn't quiet anymore. Where there had once been silence and death, now there were voices, dozens, of languages, laughter, tools clanking, and the gentle music of flowing spring water echoing through stone corridors. Jace walked the narrow path between tents made of scavenged fabric and ship parts. Children with glowing eyes and strange hands ran past him, giggling. One of them handed him a flower that shimmered like crystal. He didn't know its name, but he smiled anyway. At the base of the old spring vault, Leora stood with her back to him, instructing a group of newly arrived settlers. Her voice was calm, commanding but kind. She had changed, not in appearance. Her silver hair still drifted in the breeze, her blue-gray skin still shone under the moons. But in her presence, Leora no longer looked like someone surviving exile. She looked like someone building a future. Later that day, the council ship arrived. No warning. No request. It cut through the clouds like a blade. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Mothers pulled their children back. Traders covered their goods. Scientists grabbed their data and ran for the vault. Jace didn't run, and neither did Leora. The ship landed on the hard sand near the ridge. Its black metal body shimmered with old power. The council's crest glowed red, like a warning. From its ramp stepped 5 armored figures. The lead one was taller than the rest, a woman with cold silver eyes and golden robes over her armor. "Leora Velnari," she called out, voice echoing through the valley. "You are summoned by the Council of Elders." Leora didn't move. "Summoned? I was cast out. You defied law. You stole protected creatures. You spread false messages about restricted zones." Jace stepped forward. "The spring is real." The commander barely glanced at him. "You are human. You have no place in this matter." Jace smiled faintly. "I gave my water to save your so-called protected creatures. That gives me a place." The woman turned back to Leora. "Come with us. If you comply, we will spare this colony. And if I don't, then we will return with fire." The moment was still. Jace could feel the weight of it pressing on his chest, and then Leora stepped forward, but not toward the ship. She walked to a raised stone, climbed it, and turned to face the crowd. "I am no longer a daughter of your council," she said, voice loud and clear. "I am a daughter of this world. I found something stronger than your laws, life, and I won't give it up." The commander raised her hand but stopped, because behind Leora hundreds had gathered. Humans, aliens, elders, children, scientists, survivors. They weren't armed. They didn't need to be. Their presence was enough. The commander's hand fell. "This is not over," she hissed. "One day your hope will die." Leora stared her down. "Hope doesn't die. It spreads." And without another word, the council left. That night, the stars were brighter than ever. Jace and Leora sat at the edge of the spring, their feet in the cool water. The Virans lay beside them, healthy, glowing softly. Jace spoke first. "You were brave today," Leora smiled. "I was shaking inside. You didn't show it." She leaned her head on his shoulder. For a long time they didn't speak. Then, Leora whispered, "I never thanked you properly." "For what?" "For giving your last water. For believing in me. For choosing to stay." Jace looked at her. "You don't need to thank me." But she shook her head. "No," she said softly. "Let me." She stood up, took a step back, and pressed her hand to her heart. "In my culture," she said, "when we give our heart, we don't speak the words. We show them." She removed the last piece of her broken armor and placed it at his feet. It was her crest, her family symbol. "I am not theirs anymore," she said. "I am yours, if you'll have me." Jace stood up, breath caught in his throat. He reached out, took her hand, and pulled her close. "I already do." They didn't kiss. Not then. They just stood there, forehead to forehead, as the water flowed, and the stars watched. And in that moment, they didn't feel like a human and an alien. They felt like two parts of something bigger. In the years that followed, the spring grew into a city. Not a city of steel and glass, but of harmony. Different species lived side by side. The sick came for healing, the lost came for guidance, and the cruel, they stayed away, because legends had spread about the desert that bloomed and the girl who gave her heart to the one who gave his last drop of water.